I was enjoying my getaway with AP when my husband sent this surprise for me.
Ever since I met Laura, I always believed that a bond built on trust was unbreakable. We had been the envy of our circle, with our tales of love lasting over 2 decades. Little did I know that a simple envelope would shatter that belief. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, the kind that paints the trees with a fiery hue, and the wind carries secrets. As I walked towards my home after a long day at work, I noticed a stark white envelope lying in our mailbox. No stamp, no address, just a simple handwritten mark on the front. Curiosity got the better of me, and I swiftly tore it open. The letter inside was typed, and the words sent chills down my spine. Open your eyes, Mark. Love can blind, but the truth can hurt even more. Laura isn't as faithful as you think. I felt my heart skip a beat. Laura, my Laura, cheating on me? No, it can't be. We had spent more than 20 years together, sharing not just a home, but dreams, hopes, secrets, and every imaginable emotion. This had to be a sick joke, but who would do such a thing? And why? I looked around, half expecting to see a pair of sneering eyes watching me from the shadows, enjoying the aftermath of their cruel prank. But the street was quiet, with just the rustling leaves and my racing heartbeat breaking the silence. I hid the letter in my briefcase, deciding not to share it with Laura just yet. Instead, I resolved to keep an eye on her, to watch for signs that could confirm or refute this terrible accusation. I believed in her, in us. Yet, there was this gnawing feeling at the pit of my stomach, like a worm eating away at the apple of our love. Over the next few days, everything seemed normal. Laura was her usual chirpy self, filling our home with her laughter and love. But then I noticed it. Robert, our close friend for years, a man I'd shared countless memories with, was around more than usual. At first, I dismissed it as mere coincidence, but the signs started to add up. The stolen glances they exchanged when they thought I wasn't looking, the hushed conversations that ceased when I entered a room, the secret smiles that hinted at shared secrets. I wanted to confront her, to ask her outright, but every time I mustered the courage, she'd look at me with those same eyes filled with love, and my doubts would melt away. But the envelope's message remained, lurking in the shadows, reminding me that sometimes, what seems too good to be true usually is. Days turned into weeks, and the gnawing suspicion inside me continued to grow. Each interaction between Laura and Robert became magnified, every whisper echoing loudly in my mind, every touch sending electric shocks down my spine. The world around me started to shift, with doubt clouding every beautiful memory we'd built. I had always been a man of action, so I decided to dive deeper. I began keeping track of Laura's movements, something I never imagined I'd ever do. I made notes of the times she'd take calls outside, her sudden late-night outings, and those weekend get-togethers with girlfriends that I'd never heard of. My journal started filling up with these observations, but it wasn't just notes, it was a testament to a crumbling foundation. One day, as I was making another entry, I stumbled upon a receipt from a fancy restaurant. The date was from one of those nights Laura had claimed to have a girls' night out. But what caught my attention was the total, far too high for just one person. My heart raced as I recalled her coming home that night, her makeup slightly smudged and her demeanor slightly off. With the receipt as my cue, I decided to dig deeper. I turned to technology for help. I installed a discreet tracking app on Laura's phone. The sinking feeling of betraying her trust was overwhelmed by the burning need to know the truth. And soon, the app gave me exactly what I was looking for. The locations she frequented matched Robert's. They were together at parks, cafes, and even, on one occasion, a secluded lakeside cabin. One evening, after another late night at work, I confronted Laura. Her face turned ashen as I listed my observations, my voice trembling, barely concealing the heartbreak. But to my surprise, she laughed. A forced, nervous laugh. She accused me of being paranoid, questioning my trust in our love and reminding me of our years together. "Mark," she said, looking straight into my eyes, "you're seeing shadows where there are none." Her gaslighting began to make me question everything. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe all this was just a figment of my overactive imagination. But then, a ray of hope, or perhaps despair, came from the most unexpected source. Robert's wife, Emily. She called me one morning, her voice trembling. She too had found signs, hints, and whispers of betrayal. She too had been dismissed, laughed at, and accused of being delusional. We were two souls, broken by the same deceit, seeking answers in a world that seemed to be shifting under our feet. Together, we decided to find undeniable proof and confront the liars that had torn our worlds apart. The hunt was on, and the stakes had never been higher. It was on one of those cool, foggy mornings that I found solace in our town's park. The mist clung to the trees, and the world felt muffled, like a scene straight out of a dream. As I walked down the familiar paths, each step seemed to echo with memories of happier times, back when doubt and heartbreak were foreign concepts. Amidst the silence, I heard a familiar voice call out to me. "Mark!" Turning around, I saw Jane, a mutual friend of Laura's and mine. With her sun-kissed hair and always comforting smile, Jane had been an ever-present figure in our lives. She'd been there through our highs and lows, our joys and sorrows. She approached, her eyes showing a hint of concern. "You look like you've seen better days," she remarked gently. We sat on a nearby bench, the cold metal, a stark contrast to the warmth of memories associated with this place. With a deep breath, I spilled everything. The letter, the tracking, the confrontation, and the alliance with Emily. As I narrated, I could see a mixture of sympathy and concern in Jane's eyes. When I finished, there was a heavy pause, the weight of my revelations hanging in the air. After what felt like an eternity, Jane finally spoke, her voice filled with a sadness I had never heard before. "Mark," she began, hesitatingly, "there's something I think you should know." She revealed that she had seen Laura and Robert together on multiple occasions over the past few months. They had been at cafes, malls, and even at Jane's own birthday party, always finding corners to whisper, share fleeting touches, and exchange looks filled with a secret intimacy. Jane hadn't thought much of it initially, assuming it was just close friendship. But as the instances grew, her own suspicions began to mount. She even recalled a particular evening when she caught them sharing a much too intimate moment in her garden. Jane's revelations were like a hammer to my already fragile heart, but what she said next was even more shattering. Robert was known to be manipulative. In the past, he had charmed and deceived others, leaving a trail of broken relationships in his wake. His modus operandi was always the same: befriend, charm, and then destroy. Laura wasn't his first victim, and if left unchecked, she wouldn't be his last. I felt a whirlwind of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness. But more than anything, I felt a sense of determination. With Jane's insights, Emily's support, and my own observations, I was building a case. A case not just against Robert, but against the shadows of doubt and deceit that had crept into my life. It was time to bring everything to light and confront the two people who had betrayed me the most. The storm was coming, and I was at its center. The following week, I meticulously planned the confrontation. With Jane and Emily's help, we arranged for a dinner at my house. The pretense was simple: a reunion of old friends, a gathering to reminisce and celebrate our shared history. Robert and Laura suspected nothing, or at least, they showed no signs of it. The evening started off pleasantly. The golden glow of the setting sun filtered through the curtains, and soft music played in the background. Laughter and chatter filled the room, creating an illusion of harmony. But beneath the surface, tension crackled like electricity. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for coffee, I took the lead. With a deep breath, I began. Tonight isn't just about memories or celebrating friendship. It's about truth and confronting the shadows that have crept into our lives. The room went silent. Laura's face turned pale, and Robert shifted uncomfortably. I continued, laying out all the evidence, from the letter to Jane's revelations, from the tracking results to the emotional pain that their deceit had inflicted on Emily and me. The atmosphere was thick with emotion. Accusations flew, voices raised, tears flowed, and for the first time, the mask of deception started to crumble. Robert, in a desperate bid to deflect blame, tried to paint himself as the victim. He spoke of loneliness, of feeling unappreciated, and how Laura was a beacon of hope in his desolate life. Laura, on the other hand, seemed lost and confused. She alternated between expressing remorse and accusing me of smothering her with my insecurities. She admitted to being swayed by Robert's charm, but also expressed her frustration at feeling taken for granted in our relationship. Jane and Emily were my pillars of support. They countered every lie, every deflection, reminding Robert and Laura of the pain they had caused, the trust they had broken, and the lives they had torn apart. Hours seemed to pass. The room was a battleground of emotions, and the scars of betrayal were laid bare for all to see. By the end, as the first light of dawn started to peek through, one thing was clear. Relationships were forever altered. There was no going back, no healing the wounds. All that was left were the pieces of shattered trust and the daunting task of moving forward. As everyone left, the house was eerily silent, but it was also free from the chains of deceit. I sat alone, reflecting on the storm that had passed, feeling both drained and liberated. The confrontation had been painful, but it had also been necessary. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now it was based on truth. In the wake of that tumultuous night, life took on an almost surreal quality. The town, once filled with fond memories, now bore the scars of betrayal at every turn. Whispers followed me wherever I went, some filled with sympathy, others with morbid curiosity. The first few days were a blur of pain and numbness. Emily and I leaned on each other, finding solace in shared anguish. Our meetings became frequent, and a unique bond began to form between us. It wasn't romantic, but rather an understanding, a mutual support system built on the ruins of deceit. Laura, overwhelmed by guilt, retreated from social life. She moved out, seeking solace in solitude, grappling with the consequences of her actions. From mutual friends, I learned she had started therapy, trying to find answers and perhaps a path to redemption. Robert, true to his manipulative nature, attempted to spin the story in his favor, painting himself as a misunderstood soul caught in the crossfire of emotions. But his charms had limits. With the truth out in the open, many began to see through his facade. He faced social ostracization and was even forced to step down from several community committees. About a month after the confrontation, I received a handwritten letter, its familiar script tugging at my heartstrings. It was from Laura. She wrote of her remorse, her realization of the depths of her betrayal, and the pain she had inflicted, not just on me, but on herself as well. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She merely wanted me to understand her side of the story, her loneliness in our relationship, her vulnerability, and how Robert had expertly exploited it. Reading the letter was an emotional roller coaster. Anger, pity, sadness, and love swirled inside me. While it didn't change the past or mend the broken bonds, it provided a perspective, a glimpse into the human frailty that led to the betrayal. The town, ever resilient, slowly started to heal. New stories replaced the old, and life resumed its pace. But for those of us at the heart of the storm, the journey was just beginning. Emily, finding strength in her pain, started a support group for individuals dealing with betrayal. It became her mission to help others navigate the treacherous waters of deceit and come out stronger. As for me, I turned to writing, pouring my emotions, my experiences, and my lessons into words. The journal that had once been a record of suspicion transformed into a memoir of healing. With Jane's encouragement, I even got it published. The book, titled Shadows of Deceit, became a local bestseller and resonated with many who had faced similar betrayals. The final chapter of my story was marked by a simple yet profound event. On the anniversary of the confrontation, I visited the same park where Jane had revealed the truth to me. Sitting on the familiar bench, I took out Laura's letter, reread it one last time, and then set it aflame. As the ashes floated away, carried by the gentle breeze, it symbolized my letting go, my release from the chains of the past, and my first step towards a future of healing and hope.
Story number 2.
Hey Reddit, John here. If someone told me a year ago that I'd be penning down this roller coaster of a story, I'd have laughed it off. But here we are. So, buckle up, because this one's wild. Now, to understand the depth of the situation, you've got to know how it all started. It was one of those classic rainy days in Edinburgh. You know, the type where the rain drizzles down, just lightly enough that it's almost romantic, but just heavy enough to warrant an umbrella. The streets had that fresh rain scent, and the cobblestones glistened with tiny puddles reflecting the gray sky. Most folks dashed about, but not me. I was in no hurry, completely engrossed in the beauty of the rain. I remember I was trying to take a picture of the castle from this particular angle when I bumped into someone. Looking down, I saw this girl, Alicia, on the ground, her papers all scattered, her umbrella flipped inside out. But what caught my attention was her reaction. She was laughing. Not embarrassed or angry, just genuinely laughing at the mess we'd created. We got to talking, and there was this instant connection. It's crazy. It felt like I'd known her for ages. She had these piercing blue eyes that seemed to dance when she spoke, and a laugh that was so contagious, I found myself chuckling along even when nothing was particularly funny. Alicia was studying art history and had a deep love for Edinburgh's architecture. She showed me the city through her eyes that day, and I was utterly captivated, both by her and the stories she told. Our dates were straight out of a rom-com. Picnics in Princes Street Gardens, late-night walks along the Royal Mile, sharing stories, dreams, and churros from that tiny stall near the Scottish National Gallery. It felt like fate had thrown us together. When I proposed only a few months later, under the twinkling fairy lights of Circus Lane, she said yes without hesitation. Our friends said we were mad, rushing things, but it felt right, you know? We were young, in love, and had dreams as vast as the sky. The wedding was a small, intimate affair, but brimming with genuine happiness. That beginning, it was like something out of a fairy tale. Little did I know that every story has its twists and turns. But that's for later. All right, Reddit, this is where the gut feeling started to creep in, even though I didn't fully realize it at the time. After the fairy tale start, life began settling into a sort of rhythm. We were newlyweds, figuring out how to live together, sharing our space and our lives. The fun part? Getting to know all of Alicia's friends. She had this close-knit group from college, and they'd meet every other week and I'd occasionally join in. There was this one friend of hers, Zara, who always stood out. Fiery redhead, incredibly sharp wit, and always seemed to have a protective aura around Alicia. One day, after one of those dinner get-togethers, I was helping clean up when Zara cornered me in the kitchen. She looked serious, almost concerned, and I remember thinking she was going to talk about some diet or kitchen hack. But no. She leaned in, and in a hushed tone that I could barely hear over the clamor of the party, she whispered, "John, Alicia isn't who you think she is." I blinked, taken aback. Was this some sort of joke? I chuckled awkwardly, trying to brush it off, thinking maybe this was some weird way of hers to break the ice. But the look on Zara's face was dead serious. She continued, "Just be careful, okay? Watch out for signs." Now, I'll admit, alarm bells did ring in my head, but I immediately pushed them aside. I thought maybe Zara was just being overly protective, or perhaps she had some unresolved issues with Alicia. Besides, I trusted Alicia. Our love story felt too real, too raw to be tainted by whatever Zara was hinting at. I gave Zara a tight smile and nodded, saying, "Thanks for the concern, but I trust Alicia with all my heart." Zara just looked at me with sad eyes, as if she wished she could say more but was bound by some unspoken promise. That night, as I lay in bed next to Alicia, her rhythmic breathing lulling me to sleep, I couldn't shake off Zara's words, but every time doubt crept in, I'd brush it away. Love, after all, was about trust, right? But Reddit, as you'll come to see, Those words planted a seed that would grow into an overhanging cloud of doubt. So, Reddit, the thing about trust is that once there's even a tiny crack in its foundation, everything else seems a little off-kilter. I hate to admit it, but those words from Zara, they stuck. And perhaps it was that whisper of doubt that made me notice things I would have otherwise overlooked. Fast forward a few weeks, and it was a Saturday morning. Alicia had this ritual of heading out to her favorite cafe every Saturday to catch up on her reading. She'd get this massive cup of chai latte, immerse herself in a book, and just escape for a while. I'd often teased her about her sacred weekend ritual, but deep down, I loved how passionate she was about her little routines. That morning, she left her bag on the kitchen table in her hurry. She called out, laughing, "If I forget my head one day, could you remember to pack that for me too?" I remember laughing at her adorable clumsiness. After she left, I decided to be the good husband and pack up her essentials, her wallet, her book, and her favorite pen. But as I was doing so, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic at the bottom of her bag. I pulled out a shimmering necklace. It was delicate, with a sparkling pendant that had an intricate design I didn't recognize. It was beautiful, but it was also entirely unfamiliar. I had never seen it on Alicia, and I certainly hadn't gifted it to her. My first thought, maybe it was a family heirloom or something she'd bought recently. Later that evening, as we settled in with some takeaway and a movie, I casually brought it up. "Hey, I found this necklace in your bag. It's pretty. New?" She looked momentarily taken aback and then replied, "Oh, that? It's from my aunt. She gave it to me last week when I visited her." She quickly took it from my hand and set it aside. But, Reddit, something felt off. It was in the split second of hesitation before she answered. Or maybe the way she avoided eye contact just then. Or maybe it was my now slightly suspicious mind overanalyzing. But it felt like there was something she wasn't telling me. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I told myself Zara's words were just playing tricks on my mind, and there was a perfectly reasonable explanation for the necklace. Yet, as the night wore on and as Alicia snuggled up to me, the weight of that necklace felt like an anchor, pulling me down into a sea of doubt. All right, Reddit, things started spiraling from here, and I felt like I was in one of those mystery thriller movies. In the days following the necklace incident, I tried to get back to our normal rhythm. We laughed, made plans, even talked about taking a trip to the Highlands together. But every so often, I'd catch Alicia looking distant, lost in thought. I chalked it up to stress or maybe some issues at her work. We all have those moments, right? One night, we were curled up on our couch watching some cheesy rom-com. We were sharing a blanket, and Alicia had her phone next to her on the couch. As the movie played, I noticed her phone lighting up repeatedly. Buzz. Pause. Buzz again. Now, Alicia's popular, and her phone's almost always buzzing. But that night, every time it did, she would subtly shift her position, ensuring the screen stayed hidden from my view. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the movie, but it was like a mosquito in a quiet room, impossible to ignore. Then, during a particularly quiet scene in the movie, it buzzed again, lighting up bright enough for me to catch a glimpse. A message from Elle that read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow." My heart sank. The way it was written, it wasn't just a casual meetup. There was intimacy in those words. And who was Elle? None of her close friends had names starting with that letter. As casually as I could muster, I asked, "Who's texting you this late?" She glanced at her phone and quickly replied, "Oh, just some work stuff. You know how it is." But she didn't open the message. Instead, she turned off her phone screen and snuggled closer to me. Sleep was elusive that night. Every worst-case scenario played out in my mind. Was it a coworker? An old flame? The unknowns were eating at me. But more than anything, it was the secrecy, the hiding. If it was innocent, why not just tell me? The next morning, she was gone early, leaving a note about an early work meeting. All day, I was restless, debating whether to confront her or to let it go. By evening, I decided that trust was key, and I'd been acting like a crazy, paranoid husband. Hey Reddit, the rabbit hole just kept getting deeper. Here's where the roller coaster took another steep dive. It was on a Thursday afternoon when I met up with my mate, Theo, for a pint at our locale pub. We'd been friends since high school, and he'd recently moved to London for work. He was back in Edinburgh for a few days, and we were catching up on life, work, and all the usual banter. About halfway through our second pint, Theo, with a hesitant look, asked, "John, is everything okay with you and Alicia?" I remember frowning, slightly tipsy, and replied, "Yeah, mate, why?" Theo took a deep breath. "Look, I might be wrong and I don't want to cause any trouble, but I thought I saw Alicia at King's Cross Station in London last Tuesday. She was with some guy, tall, dark-haired, looked a bit like a model. They seemed close." My heart started racing. Alicia hadn't mentioned going to London. In fact, she'd told me she had meetings in Birmingham that day. I tried to keep my composure. "Theo, are you sure it was her? King's Cross is always packed. Could have been anyone." Theo looked uncomfortable. I mean, I wasn't spying or anything, just waiting for my train. But yeah, pretty sure it was her. She had that unique pendant around her neck, the one you found in her bag. I took a deep breath. My mind was racing. Was Theo mistaken? But the mention of the necklace made it hard to believe it was just a coincidence. I finished my drink and headed home, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I decided to confront Alicia about it. As I stepped into our apartment, she greeted me with her usual bright smile, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. "How was drinks with Theo?" she asked casually. Without skipping a beat, I blurted out, "Were you in London last Tuesday?" She looked taken aback. "No, I was in Birmingham for meetings, remember? Why?" "Theo said he saw you at King's Cross with some guy." Alicia laughed, but there was an edge to it. Theo must have been mistaken. I was nowhere near London. Maybe he saw someone who looked like me. I wanted to believe her. I desperately did. But the lies, the necklace, the texts, everything piled up, making it hard to see through the fog of doubt. She must have noticed the skepticism on my face because she came over, held my face, and said, "John, you trust me, right?" And read it as much as I wanted to scream yes. All I managed was a nod, while my insides continued their turmoil. The journey from total trust to total doubt is a short one, and I was now at a crossroads, wondering which path to take. All right, Reddit, buckle up because this chapter in our saga, it's wild. It was on a sunny Saturday morning, almost deceptively peaceful given the storm that was brewing inside our relationship. I was tidying up the study, clearing out old papers and random junk we'd accumulated over the years. In my quest for order, I opened a drawer that was Alicia's domain, mostly filled with her stuff, things she'd pick up, mean to use, and then forget. Amidst the collection of pens, old receipts, and miscellaneous knickknacks, I spotted a folded paper that looked distinctly like a hotel booking confirmation. Curiosity piqued, and yes, I know, perhaps it was wrong to snoop. I opened it up. It was a reservation for the Ritz in London, a luxurious suite, for a weekend, under Alicia's name. My heart raced, memories of Theo's sighting in London flooding back. This was evidence, wasn't it? Or was I jumping to conclusions? I needed answers. That evening, over dinner, I slid the confirmation across the table. "Found this today," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Planning a trip to London?" Alicia's eyes widened momentarily, but she quickly regained her composure. "Oh, that. It's a surprise for Zara's birthday. I wanted to treat her to a fancy weekend. You know, girls' trip kind of thing." Remember Zara? The friend who'd warned me about Alicia? This didn't make any sense. If Zara felt Alicia was hiding something from me, why would she be planning a luxurious weekend away with her? "Alicia, why didn't you tell me? And why would you take Zara to the Ritz? Seems excessive?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "I just wanted it to be a surprise for everyone. And after everything that's happened recently, I thought Zara and I could use some bonding time." Reddit, the stories weren't adding up. Here was my wife, spinning what seemed like tales right in front of me. My trust was on thin ice, and the weight of all these secrets threatened to break it completely. I tried to push the doubts aside, hoping there was some grain of truth in her words. But the idea of my Elysia at the Ritz with someone who wasn't me painted a picture I couldn't ignore. Would I ever find out the truth behind all these half-told tales? Reddit. I knew I had to confront Zara. If there was even a sliver of truth in Elysia's story, Zara would be my ticket to clarity. But if Elysia was lying, well, Zara had already warned me once, hadn't she? I gave Zara a ring, and we decided to meet at this quiet little cafe in Edinburgh, the kind of place where conversations felt private even amidst the clatter of cups and saucers. As I walked in, I spotted Zara by the window. Her expression was one of surprise mixed with concern. I took a deep breath and walked over. Zara wasted no time. "John, why did you want to meet? Is everything okay with Elysia?" Hesitating, I showed her the hotel booking confirmation. "Elysia told me she booked this for your birthday, a girl's trip to the Ritz. Is it true?" Zara's eyes went wide, genuine shock registering on her face. "John, I have no idea what you're talking about. My birthday isn't even around this date, and I haven't planned any trips with Elysia." My heart sank. Another lie. But Elysia said. Zara cut me off, her voice soft. "John, I warned you about Elysia. I've been noticing her acting strange lately, distancing herself, making excuses, always on her phone. I thought it was just stress or work, but now I'm genuinely worried." The weight of everything hit me. Theo's sighting, the texts, the necklace, and now this. Each lie was a dagger, slowly piercing the trust I once had in Elysia. "Zara, what do you think is going on?" She sighed deeply, looking out the window. "I wish I knew, John, but something's definitely up." As we parted ways, Zara hugged me, whispering, "Find out the truth, John. For both your sakes." Walking home, the city of Edinburgh, which once felt like a haven for our love story, now felt like a labyrinth with secrets lurking in every corner. But one thing was clear. I was determined to find my way out and uncover the truth about Elysia's web of lies. All right, Reddit, if you thought this journey was a roller coaster before, you're in for a shocker now. Hold on to your hats. I made up my mind to get to the bottom of this. No more doubts, no more second guessing. I had to see for myself. So, I decided to surprise Elysia during her supposed girls' trip to the Ritz. If she was indeed there with Zara, I'd apologize, tell her it was a romantic gesture gone wrong, and make amends. If not, well, I needed to know the truth. I took an early train to London, my thoughts racing with every passing landscape. Arriving at the Ritz, the opulence and grandeur of the place hit me. Was this the setting for Elysia's secrets? Taking a deep breath, I approached the front desk, hoping to come up with a believable excuse for them to tell me Elysia's room number. But, as luck would have it, I didn't need one. From the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of her in the hotel bar, laughing, her hair dancing around her face. But it wasn't Zara sitting across from her. It was a man. Tall, dark-haired, with a familiarity that tugged at my memory. As I inched closer, the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. That man was Lucas, my long-lost brother who had taken off years ago to travel the world, leaving his past behind. We had lost touch, and my last memory of him was as a free-spirited teenager, not the polished man in front of me. The laughter, the touching of hands, the shared glances. It wasn't just friendly, it was intimate. My heart ached. Betrayal from a partner is one thing, but from family, it's a wound that cuts deep. Retreating to a quiet corner, I watched them for what felt like hours, trying to process the scene unfolding in front of me. Questions clouded my mind. How did they meet? How long had this been going on? Why Lucas? I felt lost, a stranger in a city and a life I thought I knew. Drowning in emotions and the sheer weight of the situation, I retreated from the Ritz, leaving behind two people who meant the world to me, their world now intertwined in ways I could never have imagined. Reddit. I never imagined I'd find myself in this situation. The combined sting of betrayal from your partner and your own flesh and blood is something indescribable. But here I was, ready to face it head on. After leaving the Ritz, my steps had taken me to a solicitor's office. Driven by raw emotion, I had divorce papers drawn up immediately. It felt impulsive, rash even, but in that moment, it was the only tangible action that seemed to provide some semblance of control over the spiraling chaos. With the papers in hand, I headed back to the Ritz. I was a man on a mission, to confront and to close this chapter of my life. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted closure. Entering the bar once more, I spotted them still there, engrossed in their world. The weight of the papers in my hand felt both heavy and liberating. Summoning all the strength I had left, I marched up to them. Without a word, I slammed the divorce papers onto their table, breaking the intimate bubble they were in. The sharp noise drew startled looks from nearby patrons. Elysia's eyes widened in horror. "John, what's this?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Lucas looked up, his face pale, guilt evident in his eyes. "John, let me explain," he began, but I raised a hand to stop him. "There's nothing to explain," I said coldly. "I saw everything I needed to." Elysia's eyes filled with tears. "John, I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "It was a mistake. I was lost. I was lonely. It wasn't supposed to happen." Tears streamed down her face, but they no longer had the power to move me. "You were lost?" I said, voice dripping with bitterness. "Seems like you found your way pretty easily to Lucas." Lucas, always the smooth talker, tried to intervene. "John, we didn't plan for this, it just happened." But I was done. Done with the lies, the deceit, and the heartbreak. "Save it," I spat. "You both deserve each other." Turning on my heel, I walked away from the devastation I'd left behind. The cacophony of the bustling city outside mirrored the chows in my mind. But amidst it all, a quiet resolve began to take shape. I would rebuild, rediscover myself, and move forward from this pain. Read it. It's hard to put into words the emotions that course through you when the two people you trust the most betray you. It feels like drowning, like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. But as I left the Ritz that day, I also left behind the chains of betrayal, ready to embark on the journey of healing. All right, Reddit. Here's the final chapter of this painful saga. Brace yourselves. The cold London air felt sharp against my skin as I left the Ritz. The city lights, which once represented dreams and possibilities, now only cast shadows of doubt and pain. Each step took me further from the life I had known, the love I had felt, and the trust I had so effortlessly given. As the tube whisked me away, flashes of the past haunted me. Our first meeting in the rain-soaked streets of Edinburgh, the warmth of Elysia's embrace, Lucas's infectious laughter from our childhood, memories that were now tainted, forever altered by betrayal. Reaching the station, I sat on a bench, watching the world go by in a blur. Strangers rushed past, each with their own stories, their own pain. And it made me realize, no matter how unique our stories are, we're all bound by the threads of love, trust, and, inevitably, heartbreak. Tears welled up, blurring my vision. I wasn't crying just for the love lost or the betrayal. It was the sheer unexpectedness of it all. The abrupt realization that life could take such a cruel turn without warning. With a heavy heart, I boarded a train heading north, away from London. I didn't have a destination in mind, but that didn't matter. I needed to be away, to find a place where memories wouldn't haunt every corner. Hours turned into days, the rhythmic chugging of the train, the changing landscapes outside, the kindness of strangers. They all became a balm to my wounded soul. Slowly, the tight knot in my chest began to loosen. I finally alighted in Manchester, a city I had no connections with, a blank canvas. It felt right. Here, amidst the red-bricked buildings and bustling streets, I would rebuild. Not to forget, but to carry forward, bearing the scars of my past, yet not letting them define me. So, here I am, Reddit, sitting in a small cafe in Manchester, writing this out, sharing my story with you. I don't know what the future holds, but I've learned that life is unpredictable. It throws curveballs when you least expect them. But, in the face of heartbreak, all we can do is pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. Thanks for listening. It's not the ending I had hoped for, but it's the one I've got. And maybe, just maybe, that's okay.
Hi Reddit, I'm literally sobbing while I write this. Being isolated after doing something wrong can lead to a bad case of depression. My family doesn't want to see me anymore because I had an affair with my sister's boyfriend. I know that sounds very bad, and to be honest, I feel like shit right now. I also feel like a slut who could not control her feelings for a guy she liked. But there's always two sides to a story, and I hope I can tell my own side on Reddit. Even after several attempts, my family would rather isolate me than actually give me a listening ear. My sister won't even talk to me. I know she's mad, but I think I deserve a listening ear at least. The worst part is that she was ready to hear from her boyfriend and listen to his explanation. Why am I the one being isolated? My name is Felicia, and I'm a 23 years old college student. I come from a family of 6, and I have 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. My brothers are now living on their own, and it's just me and my sister who live with our parents. My sister Gloria is 1 year older than me, and she's also a college student, but she's in her final year of college. My relationship with my sister has always been good. We fight like sisters do, but we always have each other's backs. Before we got into college, we used to talk about everything and had no secrets. But my sister got into college first, and I was still in my final year of high school. I don't know how to explain that feeling of sudden distance that came between us. We were no longer as close as we used to be. She found it hard to tell me things she usually had no problem telling me before. As time went on, there was a strain in our relationship. She felt like we were no longer kids, and she was now a college student, so she could not be seen with me all the time. That really broke my heart because my sister has always been like my best friend. I never saw the reason why college had to be the reason we were no longer close. But I let it go and decided to give her some space. 1 year later, I got into college too. When I got into college, I really expected my sister and I to get back to being close, but that was not the case. There was still a strain in our relationship. I'm not saying my sister was mean to me or she ignored me. I'm just saying that our relationship was almost cordial and we never really checked up on each other. This was a big problem for me because I was new in college and always looked forward to having my sister show me around and teach me all the ways of college. As time went on, I decided to stop being dependent on her. I stopped trying to get Gloria to hang out with me. I made my own friends and finally found my confidence in college. It was a nice arrangement for me because I no longer had to feel like I was inserting myself in my sister's life. I didn't really know much about her directly. I heard most of it from other people. I got to know that she started dating and went to parties quite often. I was really happy for her, but it broke my heart that we could not have a sister talk about boys anymore. In the past, Gloria and I would sit on our beds and talk about our future boyfriends and what they might be like. We even made promises to tell each other when we finally got someone we liked. So that's why I was somewhat upset that she did not keep her promise. My friends noticed how I felt and they assured me that it was normal for sisters to grow apart. They told me I did not need to overeat and I should just let it go. I think it's always easier said than done. It takes time, but eventually you forget about things. The same thing happened to me. In my second year of college, I started dating. That was not my first time dating because I already had 1 or 2 boyfriends in high school. It was just my first time actually dating legally and without a need to hide him from anybody. In the past, my parents would chase high school boyfriends out of the house with a bucket of water. That made dating quite annoying for me, so I promised myself to only date when I'm in college and at the right age. My first boyfriend in college was a loser. I regret dating that fool even till this day. All he wanted to do was force me into getting intimate with him. Even my parents noticed that he was just a bad influence, and they talked me out of dating him. Yes, that had to be my first mini heartbreak. I actually liked him back then, but I did not like his perverted behavior. So even when we stopped dating, I still felt bad about it because I liked him. My fellow Redditors, I'm sure you all can agree with me that some girls just have the worst taste in men. I'm actually one of those girls, and it's something I promised myself to work on. It's almost like I keep attracting only the bad men. After my first failed college relationship, I honestly expected my sister to check up on me. I mean, we live in the same house. Our college is just a 1-hour bus drive from our house, so our parents insisted that we not stay on campus. Even my brothers called to check up on me after my parents told them about the pervert I broke up with. My brothers literally live in another city. So, when my own sister and closest sibling who lived in the same house with me didn't even try to ask me how I was feeling, I was really upset. I know some of you would like to tell me, how hard is it for you to just move on and forget about your sister? It's not that easy to get used to being ignored by someone you've shared your whole life with. I'm a very confrontational person, so after my sister ignored me, I decided to let her know how angry I was. I walked up to her one day and asked her why she did not even care to check up on me. It was in college and she had just finished having a class by then. We were standing outside of her class and her friends were waiting for her in the class. I did not know the reaction I expected when I confronted my sister, but I definitely did not expect her to shrug nonchalantly and tell me to grow up. Well, does growing up mean I must be distant from my own sister? What she said to me that day was literally the straw that broke the camel's back. I listened to her and decided to grow up. I was so angry that day that I promised myself never to talk to her about anything. I even took down our pictures from the wall of my room. I know, I'm childish. I accept it wholeheartedly. Even my own friends told me I overreacted, but I did not care. Everyone deals with things their own way, and that was just my own way of telling my sister to fuck off. Now, I'm sure my fellow Redditors are wondering if I went and dated my sister's boyfriend just to spite her after what she said. Well, you're wrong if you think that's what happened. I'm not a psycho, and I will never date her boyfriend just to spite her. That's not what happened. If that was the case, I would not write this Reddit post, because even I would blame myself for what happened. I'm not saying I don't blame myself now, I'm just saying the situation is a little different from what you all think. Everything started from a particular party that my sister's friend threw at her house. One thing about college is that parties are constant, and if you have crazy friends who are die-hard party animals, the tendency of you finding yourself in a party is very strong. My friends live partying, and it's really surprising because they actually have very good grades and they are very intelligent. I'm not trying to say I hate parties, I just hate attending parties that I'm not directly invited to. My friends are invited to almost all the college parties, and they like to invite me by extension. They call it the invitation by an invitee. I never really got the concept of that kind of invitation, but I always gave in eventually. This particular party was actually thrown by my sister's very close friend, and I only got to know that when I attended the party. To be honest, I wanted to leave the moment I realized who was throwing the party. I did not want my sister to feel like I only came to the party because she was there. If you're wondering why I would think like that, my sister has said many such things before. Sometimes she accuses me of trying to be in the same friend group as her. I ignored her claims most of the time because I'm not really trying to be the most social sister, and I'm not trying to become a popular college student. I'm just an extrovert that likes good parties, and that's it. I never really saw why my sister felt like I was constantly trying to be in a competition with her. My fellow Redditors, all these claims are false. She brings these things up every chance she gets. I've always just loved spending time with my sister and talking to her. I grew up with this person and we were pretty close. Of course, I'll get attached and find it weird to see us keeping a distance. We grew up with two boys who were already in college while we were just starting out high school. The age gap between us is quite big, and boys have their own ways of bonding with their sisters. Our brothers are as boyish as they come. They hate high school movies and feminine interests. With that kind of environment, Gloria and I had a lot in common, so we naturally bonded. So it surprised me when my sister felt like I wanted to be in a competition with her just because I wanted to spend time with her. Even when I stopped trying after the grow-up comment she made, she'll make a fuss when we met up at the same spot with our friends. So you can understand my desperation to get out of the party the moment I realized my sister's friend was the one who threw the party. I tried to leave, but my friends encouraged me to stay. They told me I was just overreacting and that it was just a party. If 3 of your friends are trying to convince you to do something in a party room filled with people and loud music, I don't think you can resist that temptation. I gave in and decided to just stay and have fun. Even though I decided to stay, I tried my best to make sure I did not encounter my sister. It's not like I was trying to ignore her because I was scared. It's just that I did not want her to have more reasons to back up her made-up claims. While at the party, I met a group of guys that I found to be really cool. They were sitting at the edge of the party and they seemed to be playing games on their phone. I love video games a lot and I love playing them all the time. I learned how to play video games from my brothers because they are also addicted to video games. So when I saw that group of guys playing video games, I was intrigued. My fellow Redditors, I was at a party and I was trying to avoid my sister. If I saw a bunch of guys playing video games, I'd like to play too. I saw that as a perfect way to escape clashing with Gloria at the party. I did not know those guys, so I did not walk up to them immediately. I found one of my friends and I asked her if she knew who they were. She did not know them either, so we asked another friend. One of my friends said she knew them and had the same class with them. I asked her if she could introduce me to them and she agreed. I did not have any ulterior motive behind doing that. Those guys were literally strangers, and I just wanted to play video games. There were also some girls watching them while they played. I'm not the only one that got intrigued by the guys playing video games. I'm just the only one that was old or stupid enough to ask my friend to introduce me to them. Never in a million years would I have imagined that my sister had a crush on one of those guys. I never even met them before or knew we attended the same college. Out of 3 of my friends, only one person knew who they were. That just shows how insanely clueless I was. My friend dragged me there and introduced me to them. They seemed to know her just like she said, and they were friendly. I asked them if I could play with them, and they didn't mind. So after they finished the game they were still playing, I joined in the fun. I did not know how to play the one they were playing at that time, so they had to teach me the rules. After minutes of trying, I finally got a hang of it. My fellow Redditors, I was just a girl playing a video game. I did not even care to remember their names. I just played with them while we chatted about random stuff. That was literally all I did till the party ended and I left with my friends. I forgot all about that encounter the next day and moved on with my life. I didn't even remember what happened at the party. I was not drunk. I just had 2 drinks while we played video games. When I say I don't remember, I mean it was just a normal night. I took it as just another party, and I did not dwell on it. But I did not expect what happened many weeks later. I was casually walking in the hallway at my college when someone called out to me. When I turned back, I saw one of the guys I'd met at the party while playing video games. I didn't even know his name, and he had to remind me what his name was. He asked me how I was doing, and that's how we started talking. It was just a random conversation that ended barely 5 minutes after it started. I told my friends about it, and they told me it was just a normal conversation and I should stop overthinking it. Yes, I know I overthink a lot. It's one of my bad habits. I like to read into things too much. In all honesty, I did find him attractive. For reference sake, his name is Brandon. I just hope no one I know ever comes across this post. I can only hope, though. So I found Brandon attractive, and that was one of the reasons I kept overthinking things after he casually had a conversation with me in the hallway. We did not encounter each other after that day for over 2 months. I even forgot all about him in our conversation. But I ran into him at a bar one day. Don't worry, guys. I'm already old enough to drink at a bar. I was not really there for drinking, though. My friends neither worked at the bar, and she asked me to escort her so she could see him. Brandon was there with his friends, and they were busy drinking and chatting. I saw him first, but I pretended not to have seen him. I just waited for my friend to finish chatting with her brother so we could go. I decided to wait for her outside since she told me they were going to take a while. It seemed like they were arguing about something, so I did not want to intrude. I sat on a chair outside the bar and scrolled through my phone. I heard some movement behind me, and when I turned around, Brandon was standing there. My fellow Redditors, I was really shocked to see him there. I really thought he did not notice me in the bar and was occupied with chatting with his friends. "What are you doing outside alone?" he asked me before sitting opposite me. I just told him I was waiting for a friend. I was surprised when Brandon asked me why I did not say hi to him in the bar. Apparently, he'd seen me too and felt like I was ignoring him. Yes, Redditors, he really said that. I found the observation weird, and so I told him I had no reason to ignore him. We argued back and forth over the topic, and that's how a conversation erupted from our argument and we started talking. For me, I was just having a normal conversation with him, and that's what he seemed like. He was still a stranger because I didn't know much about him. Before my friend finally came outside, Brandon asked me for my phone number. I gave it to him and he gave me his own phone number. I was really excited to get to know him better because I already liked the fact that he loved video games and was quite good at playing them. He was someone I felt like I could connect with on a deeper level. Brandon and I started chatting a lot, and we even met up at bars to play video games. 2 months after exchanging contacts with him, we became really good friends. We did not have any classes together, and he was my senior in college by a year, but we still found time to meet up and play video games. At some point during our friendship, I felt the need to speak to someone about him. Brandon is a really attractive guy, and I had feelings for him. We were just friends who met up anytime we had time, but I still liked him very much. I wanted to speak to someone about it so I could know what to do. I was afraid he just saw me as a friend and nothing else. I also wanted to know if I should make the first move and ask him out. I was very hesitant in making my decisions because I was still heartbroken from my first college relationship. I did not want to rush into anything, then get my heart crushed. I was so desperate that I even went as far as asking people online for advice. Yes, I went on social media platforms anonymously so I could figure out the next step I was meant to take. In one of my social media quests, someone advised me to just go for it and stop being hesitant. Before I go on, I'd like to say social media contributes to one's curiosity sometimes. I went to speak to absolute strangers and felt comfortable asking them for relationship advice. I had no choice because I literally had no one else to ask. I did not want my friends to know I liked Brandon because they are careless talkers and could have ended up revealing everything during a meeting with him. I could not speak to my sister too because we were no longer as close as we used to be. By that time, it was over 2 years since we last spoke to one another and confided in each other. I had no choice but to listen to my online friends who advised me to go for it and let Brandon know how I felt about him. To be honest, I've never felt so shy and nervous to do something like I felt back then. Brandon had a lot of charisma, and you can just tell how confident he is in himself. I was literally scared to tell him how I felt because I was afraid of making a fool out of myself. One day I finally decided to let the cat out of the bag and just let Brandon know how I felt about him. We'd not seen each other for over 4 months before then, and we just communicated on our phones. He asked me to meet him at our usual spot, which was the bar my friend's brother worked at. My fellow Redditors, when I came to the bar that day, I got the shock of my life. Imagine me, a girl who has a crush on a guy, walking into the bar to see him waiting patiently for me. I was feeling giddy and excited, but it ended up being for nothing at all. Before I could even get settled, Brandon asked me for relationship advice. I was so shocked that I could not even say anything for a very long time. I did not like the fact that he was asking me for relationship advice. He did not know I had feelings for him because I'd never told him before, but still. Could he not tell? Well, Brandon couldn't tell I had feelings for him, and that was the reason he could ask me for relationship advice. At that point, I already knew that it was impossible to date him if he had a girlfriend. I decided to let my feelings go and do the most reasonable thing I could think of. I asked him what issues were going on in his relationship, and he told me his girlfriend was mad at him because he did not give her a gift for their 6-month anniversary. To be honest, I felt like that had to be the lamest reason for anyone to be mad at their partner. I even wanted to stand up and leave the bar right there and then. I thought he had serious issues he was dealing with, unknown to me that it was just some stupid argument. I controlled myself and just told him that the best thing he could do was get her a gift, then properly apologize and blah blah blah. I left the bar after giving him the advice he asked for. He was surprised that I did not stay back and play video games with him, but I made up an excuse. I don't know if guys just do it intentionally or they are really as clueless as they claim to be. How can you not tell if a lady likes you? At that point, we had been friends for almost 8 months. We played video games together and chatted almost all day on our phones. How could he have been spending so much time with me when he had a girlfriend? I was really angry, and so I decided to stop contacting him. It was a reflex action, and I mostly did it for my own good. I did not want to keep spending time with a guy who has a girlfriend and also happened to be my crush. None of it was healthy, so I stopped replying to his texts. 2 months went by, and I literally forgot about Brandon and everything about him. Our college exams were around the corner, and I used the opportunity to focus on the upcoming exams. After the college exams, we were on break, so I had a lot of free time. I decided to spend my free time with my friends. I got permission from my parents, and I was allowed to go spend the break at a friend's house. My friends and I mostly partied all through the break. We went to clubs, bars, and even parties we were not invited to. It was our way of shedding off the stress we'd gotten from our exams. I never expected to see Brandon again until one day when I saw him at a party my friend and I attended. I was surprised to see him, but I was not surprised enough to go speak to him. I tried my best to avoid him, but he spotted me with a friend of his towards the end of the party. My fellow Redditors, I was speaking to a random guy who engaged me in a conversation. So when Brandon suddenly appeared and gave the guy a bro hug, I realized that they were Prop's friends. I wanted to excuse them, but Brandon stopped me. He told his friend to give us a minute, and his stupid friend agreed. I don't mean to deviate, but why do guys do that sometimes? You're talking to a girl and your friend just comes out of nowhere and tells you to excuse him? The surprising thing is that most guts do not mind and they will oblige. I was not ready to stand there and have a conversation with Brandon, so I asked him to excuse me so I could go party with my friends. Brandon playfully grabbed my hand and asked me why I was ignoring his messages. I told him I was busy with exams, but he refused to listen to me. He accused me of ghosting him for no reason at all. When I insisted that I was actually busy reading for the exams just like everyone else, he asked me why I did not contact him after the exam. Even after all my attempts to make up excuses, Brandon did not listen to me. He asked me to follow him outside so we could talk without the music disturbing us. I listened to him and followed him outside. My fellow Redditors, Brandon had the audacity to ask me if I ignored him because he had a girlfriend. I did not want to give him the satisfaction of knowing I had a crush on him, so I denied his claims. Even when I met Brandon at the club back then, I still had feelings for him. It's something I cannot deny. My feelings didn't just disappear after ignoring him for months. I asked him how his girlfriend was, and he told me he no longer had a girlfriend. I did not believe him at all, and I was not afraid to let him know I felt he was lying. He told me he was serious and assured me that he was a single man. He said he broke up with his girlfriend because she was overprotective. I will not lie to you guys. I was actually very happy to learn that he broke up with his girlfriend. If you have a crush on a guy and he tells you he's single, you'll definitely see that as hope for a possible relationship. I took his word and the truth and did not doubt his words. I saw no reason for him to lie about it. He did not lie months back when he asked me for relationship advice, so I did not really think he'd have a reason to lie to me at the party. I believed him, but pretended like I did not really care that he was single. I asked him how long he's been single, and he told me it's been up to a month. When I went back home that day, I was really excited. I liked the prospect of Brandon being single again. It meant I could finally make a move and see if we would have a thing together. That same night, Brandon texted me, and that's how we started chatting again. I began to get his texts as usually as I formerly did, and our friendship was back again. We even played video games at the bar like we used to before. I was still at my friend's house, so I had the freedom to go out whenever I wanted. It was also a nice experience because Brandon and I were on break and had the opportunity to meet up freely without school getting in the way. I honestly believe that Brandon liked me because I noticed the way he started flirting with me. It was a gradual process and he started very discreetly, but as time went on, I noticed it. I did not have a problem with him flirting with me, and I even flirted back because I liked him. The first day we shared a kiss was when we were playing a video game together. The kiss just happened in the spur of the moment. I did not expect us to start kissing that fast, and to be honest, we did not stop. We started greeting each other with kisses anytime we met up to do anything. There were even times when we'd spend minutes making out instead of playing video games. I was spending the break with my friend who lived on her own, so one day when she went out, I invited Brandon to her apartment. We spent the whole day talking, playing video games, and making out. Things escalated really fast, and we ended up sleeping together that day. After he left, I spent hours thinking about what we had done. It was not my first time, and I was not a virgin, but it had been a while since I got intimate with anyone. It was a big deal for me, and I truly felt that us sleeping together was a step in the right direction. I literally acted like a high school girl who was love-struck. For me, what happened meant that Brandy liked me as much as I liked him. Now, I understand that having very limited relationship experiences makes you exaggerate what other people see as normal things. Brandon came over to my friend's place many times after that, and we hooked up a lot. It was even like I was in a full relationship with him, just that we hadn't put a title on it yet. Well, that's what I thought was going on. Never. I'm a million years would I have imagined that the guy I'd been sleeping with and dreaming of was my sister's boyfriend. I mean, Brandon didn't even tell me he had a girlfriend. He told me he was no longer in a relationship and was single. Let me tell you all how I suddenly got the shock of my life when I discovered that I was having an affair with someone's boyfriend. my sister's boyfriend. One day I decided to ask Brandon if he was ready to go official. I was tired of us hooking up and making out when we didn't even address each other as boyfriend and girlfriend yet. To me, I thought he was my boyfriend because we were literally doing everything couples do together. I also thought he felt the same way and would ask me out at his own time. Eventually, I got tired of waiting, so I decided to take matters into my own hands and do the talking. We had already resumed college by then, but I was still at my friend's place. To be honest, the reason I did not want to go back home is because I knew I could not freely invite a guy to the house as frequently as when I was bringing Brandon to my friend's house. My fellow Redditors, I invited Brandon over to my friend's place one day and asked him why he was taking time to make things official. I asked him if we were a thing or I was just his fling. Brandon decided to play the stupid card. The fool sat down on the bed and confidently told me to take a seat. I honestly thought he was about to say something serious, only for him to tell me he was back with his girlfriend. Yes, he told me that. The guy I'd been doing everything with for weeks looked me in the eye and told me he had a girlfriend. I was so angry that I almost scratched his face with my nails. What do you mean by that? I thought you told me you were single? I remember asking him in those exact words. Brandon looked me square in the eye and told me that was then, and that he was already back with his girlfriend. You needed to see the way I just stood there like a fool. To be honest, I actually believed that I am a fool. I was so furious that I threw the pillow at him. Yes, that's my version of violence. There was nothing else I could do. I asked him why he slept with me the day before if he had a girlfriend, and he just told me I was his going. Yes, Brandon told me that I was his fling. He did not wait for me to speak. Even as I ran after him and tried to get him to explain himself, he left the house without looking back. I felt like the world's biggest fool. I was so heartbroken that I decided to call my friends and finally tell them about the experience I had with Brandon. We met up at a cafe and I told them everything. I was literally a crying mess, Reddit. My friends were angry that I didn't tell them what was going on sooner, but they still comforted me and tried to make me feel better. Barely 3 hours after we separated that day, one of my friends called me and gave me the shock of my life. Apparently, she decided to ask around and find out who Brandon was dating. She got to know that his girlfriend was Gloria. Brandon was dating my sister, Gloria. The news made me feel like shit. I was so shocked, disgusted, and scared that I could not even pull myself together. I found out I had been hooking up with my sister's boyfriend. I swear that I had no idea Brandon was dating her. My friends encouraged me to go tell her the truth since it was better for her to find out from me and not someone else. I agreed with their suggestion and went back home. I called my sister to my room and told her everything. My fellow Redditors, my sister slapped me hard on the face and called me a whore and slut. I was so shocked to hear those words from my own sister. I tried to make her listen to me, but she ran off and told our parents I had an affair with her boyfriend just to spite her. My parents did not even give me time to explain. They believed everything she said and told me I let bad friends influence me into dating my own sister's boyfriend. My parents stopped speaking to me or even acknowledging my greetings. Anytime I tried to explain, they'd turn a deaf ear and shut me up. Gloria never kisses a chance to swear at me and call me a slut. She even called my brothers and told them her own fabricated version of the story. I've been trying to make my brothers understand what really happened, but even they are not ready to listen. Everyone feels Gloria's version of the story is believable because I'd been angry with her for keeping her distance from me in college. Brandon and Gloria are still dating. She forgave him and is still dating him. I don't even know the lies he told her for her to still be with him. Even when I try to show our previous text messages to our parents and Gloria, they don't believe it. Gloria even days I edited the messages just to frame him. I'm currently isolated in my house and I had to go back to my friend's place because I was tired of the side comments. No one is ready to listen to me. My brothers send me money for tuition and upkeep, but that's all. They don't even want to pick my calls. I can swear that I had no idea he was dating my sister. I was not living at the house when I was hooking up with him, so I did not know. He just told me he had a girlfriend, and I stopped replying to his texts immediately I knew. When we met again and he said he was single, I never knew he lied. I don't even know if he was aware I was Gloria's sister, and he still went on with it. I feel like shit every day, but I promise that I did not have an affair with Brandon intentionally, while I was aware he dated my sister. Gloria and I stopped telling each other everything, so I had no idea she had a boyfriend whose name was Brandon. Brandon never even came to the house before. They only started dating after the first party where I met Brandon. My friends have tried to convince my family, but no one is listening. Now, I regret keeping everything from my friends, and I regret hooking up with a guy who did not make his intentions known just because I liked him a lot. Brandon is a liar and a cheat, but I'm the one paying for his mistakes. I blame myself for being so careless and stupid. I don't know if my family will finally listen to me one day, but I'm trying to focus on college. Maybe one day, the truth will be out. I'm tired of trying. Thank you all for reading this complicated story of mine. Bye, Reddit.